She left the paved road a little after 2 in the afternoon. It was a clear day, no wind to speak of, the kind of high desert light that flattens everything and makes 50 miles look like 10. She had a phone with a full charge and half a tank of gas and a destination on the other side of the Mojave that the map said she could reach faster if she cut straight across. The satellite view showed a road, a real one, a dead straight line running west toward Palmdale, drawn so cleanly across the desert that it looked like someone had laid a ruler on the map and traced it. So she took it. There was no reason not to. 40 minutes later, the car stopped moving. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't roll. It didn't catch fire. Nothing tore loose. The engine simply turned over once and went quiet. And when she looked down at her phone to call somebody, there were no bars. Not one. She was 30-some miles from the last paved road in either direction, on a line that no map service will route a single other car onto, and the temperature inside the cabin was already climbing past 100. Nobody knew she was out here. Nobody was coming this way. And that is the part I want you to sit with before we go any further, because it is the whole reason this road can kill you. She had done almost everything right. She had made exactly one mistake. She had never told anyone where she was going. This is the Barstow-Palmdale Road. On some maps, it doesn't have a name at all, just a designation. IM 4800, the IM standing for the Iron Mountain District. It runs for roughly 50 miles in an almost perfectly straight line across the open Mojave, from the desert west of Barstow toward the Antelope Valley. And here is the first strange thing about it. The thing that should already be making you uneasy. If you open Google Maps right now and ask it for directions across this exact line, it won't give them to you. It refuses. It sends you the long way around instead, nearly 80 miles, well over an hour and a half of driving, rather than route you across a road that is sitting right there, graded, drivable, cutting straight through the middle of everything. The road exists. The map knows it exists. And it will still not send you onto it. You should ask yourself why. Because the danger of this road is not what you think it is. It isn't treacherous. It isn't a mountain pass with a 1,000-foot drop off one shoulder. It isn't a switchback slick with ice. It is flat. It is straight. It is, for most of its length, perfectly easy to drive. And that is exactly the problem. Roads like this don't kill you by being hard. They kill you by being easy, by looking so simple and so safe that you commit to them completely before you understand what you have committed to. The straightness that makes this line feel trustworthy is the same straightness that strands you, because it runs where nothing else does. No town, no gas, no water, no cell signal for miles in any direction. A normal road bends. It curves toward the places people are, toward the fuel and the help and the reasons to build a road in the first place. This one bends toward nothing. It just goes. Let me give you the number that should frame everything you're about to hear. Not far south of here runs Interstate 15, the freeway that carries traffic between Los Angeles and Las Vegas through this same stretch of the Mojave. The San Bernardino County Fire Department, the people who pull bodies and survivors out of this desert for a living. Call the I-15 corridor the deadliest stretch of highway in California. One fire station in the town of Baker covers more than 5,000 square miles of it. Think about that ratio for a second. 5,000 square miles. That is larger than the entire state of Connecticut, watched over by a single station. And when something goes wrong out there, on a paved, patrolled, heavily traveled interstate with more than 200,000 vehicles passing through every single day, help can still be more than an hour away. There are no fire hydrants on that freeway, no quick backup. The crews out there will tell you plainly that there is no margin for error, because the desert does not wait for you to get ready. A single truck fire can shut the whole road down for 8 to 12 hours. The temperatures swing from 120 degrees in summer to snow and ice in winter, sometimes in the same week. Now hold that thought and look back at where you are. If the freeway, with all its traffic and all its patrols and all its cell towers, is the deadliest road in the state, then this dirt line is the same desert with everything stripped away. No traffic, no patrols, no towers, No hydrants, no backup, no station covering you at all. Every single thing that makes the interstate survivable when it goes wrong has been removed. And what's left is just the desert and you in a straight line running off toward a horizon that never seems to get any closer. The freeway is the deadliest road in California with every advantage a road can have. This is what the same desert looks like with none of them. The professionals who work this desert will tell you the same three things every time. And I want you to notice that their advice is really just this paradox stated out loud. Keep your tank above half. Carry water, gallons of it, not a bottle. And tell someone your route and your expected arrival time before you leave. That last one isn't about comfort. It is the single thread that connects a breakdown to a rescue. It is the difference between a bad afternoon and a coroner's case. On a road like this, the moment you stop moving, the only thing that will bring anyone looking for you is the fact that somebody, somewhere is expecting you and knows where to send them. Without that, you are not stranded. You are simply gone, and no one has started counting yet. So who built it, and why? This is where the road stops being just dangerous and starts being genuinely strange, because nobody agrees. Nobody knows. And the theories that people have argued over for years are worth walking through, because every one of them tells you something about what this line is, and why you cannot trust it. The gentlest theory is that it was a utility corridor, a path graded for power lines or telephone lines or a pipeline running straight across the desert the shortest possible way. There is real evidence for this one. On some old maps, the road is actually labeled a telephone road, and the one named property anywhere along its 50 miles, a place we'll get to, was bought from the Pacific Telephone and Telegraph Company. Retired linemen have looked at this road and recognized it immediately. The numbered rural pole lines the phone company cut across open country decades ago. Roads with no names, just numbers, laid down for crews to maintain wire. During the war, the phone company strung transcontinental defense lines across the entire West, running the shortest distance from anywhere to anywhere, and every one of those lines needed a maintenance road beside it. When copper gave way to microwave relays after the war, those lines were declared surplus and stripped for scrap, every pole and every wire hauled off for salvage value, which is exactly why you might find a road still labeled a telephone road, with no telephone, anything left standing beside it. It fits. It fits a lot of the clues. And if you talk to the people whose families actually lived out here, the picture gets even richer. There are people alive today who will tell you their great-uncle was granted a few acres just off this road around 1942. Land the family still owns, part of a tiny settlement of wooden shacks with dirt floors and hand-dug wells, 30 people scattered across fewer than 10 buildings. No electricity, gas lamps at night, a shared wooden hut they called the post office even though no mail ever came. They drove into Barstow for dried meat and canned goods. A cold soda was a genuine treat. They called it Bell Road, and there was a church out there with wooden floors. That is living memory, not legend, and it puts real people on this line in the middle of the last century, tied to the phone company, in a place that had almost nothing. But the utility theory doesn't quite close, because out here on the ground there are no old pole footings, no line of stumps where poles once stood, nothing alongside the road to say a utility ever ran beside it rather than merely crossing it. When the utilities do appear, they cross the road. They don't follow it, and a road graded this straight, this deliberately, for a phone line, should have left more of a scar than a few posts and some wire. Another theory says it was a survey baseline, one of those dead straight reference lines that surveyors cut across the desert in the 1920s and 30s to establish boundaries. But this road ignores the survey grid entirely. A true section line runs north to south or east to west and turns at clean right angles. This one slices diagonally across all of it, ignoring every boundary, following its own bearing. Whoever made it was not doing county survey work. They were following their own line straight across the map, and they did not care what was already drawn there. Some people insist it was an old stagecoach route, a wagon road from the 1800s. It's a romantic idea, and it falls apart fast. Stagecoach roads were never this straight. They couldn't be. They had to follow the terrain, weaving around washes, hugging ridgelines, bending toward water and toward the ranch, stops that a team of horses depended on. This road does the opposite. It plows straight over every rise and through every shallow basin the way only 20th century machinery could. There were no stage stops along this line, no ranches, no water, and it does not appear on a single topographic map until 1943. Surveyors might miss a stretch of an old wagon road. They would not miss all of it. Then there's the darker, more human theory, and it's one you can still see the evidence of if you drive it. This part of the desert has always attracted big dreams and bad actors in roughly equal measure. Through the 1950s and 60s, developers carved huge tracts of worthless desert into paper towns, places that existed on a map and in a brochure, long before anyone put in a road or a well or a single house. People bought land they'd never seen, land with no water and no services and no real chance of ever being anything. And sometimes the only thing a developer bothered to grade was a road, just to make the emptiness photograph better. That's why the desert is full of perfectly straight roads that lead absolutely nowhere, grids that look like neighborhoods on satellite view and are on the ground, nothing at all. But the theory that fits the most clues, the one the historians and the veterans in the know keep circling back to, is the military. The Mojave is full of forgotten military roads, hundreds of them, cut fast during the Second World War and the early Cold War, roads that never show up cleanly in county records because they were never civilian projects to begin with. This one carries the Iron Mountain name. It runs straight through the R-2508 restricted airspace that covers Edwards Air Force Base, China Lake, and Fort Irwin, some of the most heavily used military desert in the entire country. And it points dead straight from the direction of the airfields toward the railroad depots at Barstow, exactly the kind of line the Army had every reason to want. Consider what a perfectly straight 50-mile baseline is actually good for, because to a military engineer, it is worth a great deal. You can calibrate radar against it. You can use it for optical tracking, for testing experimental aircraft, for convoy training, for moving equipment and men on a fixed bearing without a single wasted mile. Through the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, this whole region was being carved up by engineers testing radar systems and aircraft that officially did not exist, and a straight line drawn across the open desert was a tool, not just a road. A military crew laying that line would have had no reason to follow the county survey grid, which is exactly what we see here. They followed their own azimuth, a straight bearing mile after mile, ignoring every boundary on the map. In early 1942, General Patton established the Desert Training Center across this desert to harden 1 million men for the war in North Africa. It became the largest military training ground in history. His engineers cut more than 40 miles of road at a single camp without once consulting a county surveyor. The men who trained here will tell you about it still. There are veterans who were stationed at 29 Palms in the 70s and drove roads exactly like this one, dozens of times, past microwave antennas and radio relay stations handling secure communications, past tank units running live fire exercises, past signboards warning civilians to keep out because of the danger. There are historians and former tankers who look at this line and see it instantly for what they believe it is, a supply and training route built to move armor between the airfields, the ranges, and the rail depots, cut by an armored engineer battalion that answered to the Army and to no one else. Now, I want to be honest with you because this is where the internet gets it slightly wrong. Most of Patton's actual named training camps sat well south and east of here, down toward Needles and Desert Center, along what is now Interstate 40, not directly on this Barstow to Palmdale line. So when you hear someone say with total confidence that Patton personally built this exact road, treat it as the best guess it is, not as proven fact. The military origin fits the alignment, fits the name, fits the airspace, fits the era, fits the way the road behaves against the survey grid. It has never actually been confirmed. All of it is circumstantial, and every piece points the same direction without a single document to nail it down. And there is one more thing I'll leave for you to chew on. because I know some of you out there know more about the old telephone routes and the old army roads across this desert than I ever will. If your family homesteaded out here, if you strung wire for the phone company, if you drove this line in a uniform, I would rather hear it from you than guess at it myself. Tell me in the comments, you are the record that never got written down. Whoever built it, let's drive it. You start off State Route 58 near Hinckley, and almost immediately the desert does its trick on you. It looks flat. It looks like nothing could possibly go wrong on ground this open. Anyone who has spent real time in the Mojave knows that flat is a lie you can only believe from a distance. Up close there are hidden ridges, washes, basalt flows, sandy stretches that will swallow a two-wheel drive vehicle that made it 30 miles without a single problem. You drive west and the road changes its designation under you from IM 4800 to KH 4800, Kramer Hills, and you realize you're not really on a road with a name at all. You're on a bearing. You cross a pipeline marker, warnings posted on both sides of the track, a buried line running somewhere beneath you to somewhere you'll never see. You pass a grid of streets that Google Maps still draws like a neighborhood, and there is no neighborhood, there never was, just dirt tracks and the ghost of a subdivision that died on paper, a paper town that took people's money and gave them a square on a map and nothing else. Keep going and you cross Highway 395, a real paved road. The first pavement you've touched since you left. Look across it, and the line just continues, still dead straight, still running off toward Palmdale as if the highway were a rumor. And this is the crossing I want you to remember, because it matters later. Then, roughly halfway along the whole 50 miles, you reach the only named settlement on the entire road, a place marked on the map as House's Place, and there is nothing else out here for miles in any direction, a collapsing adobe wall. The remains of a wooden building on a concrete slab that does not date to the century people want it to. For years there was speculation it was an old stagecoach stop, until the property records told a quieter and more human story. The land was owned by Jesse and Lillian House until Jesse died in 1973. Jesse was a black man, a lieutenant in the Second World War, who built a life for his family this far out in the emptiness, a house with 2 fireplaces and electricity strung all the way out here, a 2-car garage, a stored water supply because there was no other, and they bought that land from the Pacific Telephone and Telegraph Company, which is the thread that ties the whole mystery back on itself. The phone company owned pieces of this line. In the early 60s, they started letting it go. A family made a home in what they left behind, and now the wall stands shot full of holes, and skaters have built a ramp in the garage. And that is what 50 years does to a house that no one is coming back to. And with every mile that the line runs straighter, you are 1 mile farther from anyone who would ever notice you were gone. Let me lay out exactly how this road takes people, because it is never one thing, it is a stack, and each layer waits for the one before it. The first is the signal. This line runs through dead zones the entire way, and the moment you actually need your phone, it becomes a flashlight with a clock on it. Not a lifeline, a paperweight that tells time. You can watch the little icon search for a tower it will never find, and you can hold it up to the window, and you can walk in a slow circle around the car looking for a single bar, and it will not come. That is the first thing that happens, and it happens before you even understand you are in trouble. The second layer is the car itself, and this is the one that kills fastest. Stop moving in the Mojave in the heat and your vehicle turns into an oven within minutes. The sun pours through the glass and the cabin traps it. The greenhouse effect driving the interior temperature far past anything a human body can survive, long before help could ever reach you, even if help were coming, so you cannot stay inside it. But here is the cruelty of it, the trap inside the trap. You cannot leave it either, because a car is a large metal object visible from the air and from a great distance, and a person walking away from it across open desert is a speck that vanishes against the ground. Every survival professional who works this desert says the same thing. Stay with the vehicle. The people who die are very often the ones who set out on foot to find help, because staying felt like doing nothing, and doing nothing felt like giving up. In the desert, staying put is the thing that saves you, and walking away is the decision that ends it. The third layer is the ground. It only looks flat, remember? And the trap is always late, 30 or 40 miles in, past the point where walking back is even an option. The road drops into a soft wash or a stretch of sand, and the vehicle that carried you effortlessly across the first 2/3 of the desert simply stops, wheels spinning, digging themselves deeper the harder you try. You did not do anything wrong. The road just finally showed you what it was. The fourth layer is the structural loneliness of the place, and this is the one people never account for. No map routes traffic here. That is not an accident. It is a design choice made by the software in your pocket, and it means there is no such thing as a passing Good Samaritan on this road. On a normal road, no matter how remote it feels, someone eventually drives by. That expectation is built so deep into us that we don't even notice we're relying on it. On this one, by design, no one does. You could sit with your dead car for a day and not see another vehicle. The help you're unconsciously waiting for is not late. It was never dispatched, because no one knows to send it. And then there is the fifth layer, the one the desert doesn't get credit for, the one that is a person and not a place. Drive this road and you'll pass a compound ringed with barbed wire and a wall of pushed-up dirt, greenhouses collapsing in on themselves, a water system run out to the middle of nowhere for a crop. Nobody would ever grow legally this far from a road. You'll pass stripped, abandoned cars, stolen and gutted and left. Illegal grows have been a serious problem out here for years, and the people who run them do not want to be found, and they are not glad to see you. One wrong turn on a road this empty and you can run into something far worse than any snake. Just off Highway 395, which this very road crosses, sheriff's deputies came out for a welfare check in January of 2024 and found 6 people dead at a remote dirt crossroads, a scene so grisly the news helicopters blurred it, one vehicle riddled with bullet holes. That is not a ghost story. That is this desert, this year, on the kind of intersection this road is made of. And the sixth layer is simply the clock. After dark, the Mojave fills up with strange people doing strange things in the pitch black, and your ability to navigate and anyone's ability to find you both collapse at the same moment. The case files out here are real, and they are recent. 6 dead at El Mirage off the 395 point on Interstate 40 near Barstow. A single vehicle drifted off the pavement into open desert and rolled several times, and 4 people died, 3 of them thrown from the car before it stopped. That crash happened on a patrolled interstate in daylight. And then there is the driver who did everything right, the one who haunts me most, because you can build them out of the fire department's own reports. Someone prepared, half a tank, water in the back, told a friend roughly where they were headed, and then a single truck fire closes the only artery for 8 to 12 hours, or a breakdown lands them on a shoulder in a stretch where help is structurally an hour out, and preparation turns out not to be enough, because the desert does not grade on effort. It does not care that you packed water. It only cares how far you are from another human being, and on this road that number is enormous. I don't want you to think the desert is cruel, because it isn't. Cruelty requires intention, and there is none here. The Mojave is not hunting you. It is simply consistent and completely indifferent at a scale that is hard to hold in your head. The same straight line that the Army may have cut for efficiency, that the phone company numbered for its crews, that some developer might have graded to sell a lie, that line was never built for you. It doesn't know you're on it. It cannot know. And that is the entire danger of it. The total indifference stretched out over 50 miles. Think about everyone who ever had a reason to touch this road. Soldiers who may have cut it for a war on the other side of the world. Landmen who strung wire across it and numbered it and walked away when the copper stopped mattering. A family who made a home halfway down it and buried a man there in 1973. Developers who drew towns on it that never held a single house. Every one of them had a purpose, and not one of those purposes was you, driving across it on a clear afternoon because your phone said you could. The road outlived all of their reasons. It is still here, still straight, still perfectly drivable, and it is now serving no purpose at all except to look from a distance and on a screen exactly like a shortcut. The road will not help you. It was never going to. It doesn't even register that you're there. So if you ever find yourself out here, here is what keeps you alive, and none of it is complicated. Tell someone your exact route and when you expect to arrive before you leave, every time. Keep your tank above half. Carry at least a gallon or two of water per person. Real water, not the bottle in your cup holder. If you break down, stay with the vehicle. Turn on your hazards. A car can be seen and a person cannot. Do not trust the satellite view, because a straight line on a map is not a promise that the road beneath it will hold. And whatever you do not go knocking on the door of a compound out here looking for help. The people behind that wall are not the help. Now go back to the beginning with me. Go back to the woman who left the pavement a little after 2 on a clear afternoon, with a full charge and half a tank and a road on her screen that looked exactly like a road. You know now what she didn't. You know there was no signal on that line. You know that no other car was ever going to be routed across it. You know the cabin was already an oven by the time she looked down at her phone. And you know that the flat ground ahead of her was a lie. The desert tells from a distance. But the thing that decided it, the one thing wasn't the heat or the signal or the sand. It was that no one was expecting her. No one knew the route. No one had been told. The road didn't ask whether she'd told anyone where she was going. It never does. It just waits, straight and patient and completely indifferent, to find out whether you did. For more interesting videos, consider checking this out. Thanks!